Welcome to the DeFi Standard, and this is Mickey B. Fresh.
And Patty XRP.
And we got an exciting tweet out from Brad Garlinghouse last night giving some details of Ripple's financials and their cash in the bank, and also this news that they have purchased back Series C from December 2019 shares at a $15 billion valuation here. So Patty's going to run through this tweet and what is this, and we're going to speculate a little on what this means for an IPO and potentially the future of Ripple and XRP, as well as the Allbridge interoperability layer that's going to be integrating XRP in Q2 2022.
All right. Yeah. So like Mickey said, Brad Garlinghouse announced a share buyback of their Series C round from December 2019 at a $15 billion valuation. Last I had heard of their valuation was $10 billion. So it looks like it's gone up 50% since then. It's been a couple years. Crypto's been doing pretty well despite the recent drawback. So I think that makes sense where it's at this point. And some of these other things will kind of help put that into context. So right now, Ripple's current financial position is $1 billion cash in the bank, which is the strongest they've ever been. Garlinghouse is saying here. So, I imagine a lot of that will help them weather the SEC storm as that continues on this year and, have them in a position to continue, funding development, whether it be with Ripple X or building out RippleNet and ODL and things of that nature. I do find it very interesting that they are still kind of a private company and they do have a really fantastic cash position at this point. Moving on further, which I think this is really cool. So RippleNet, they're saying is much more than cross-border payments. It's bringing crypto native services such as liquidity to enterprises, which matches up with the Liquidity Hub announcement from fall of 21. And today the network has a volume run rate of greater than $10 billion. And moving on down further, so RippleX is full speed ahead on establishing a multitude of capabilities to the XRP ledger, NFTs, CBDCs, interoperability bridges, side chains, and so much more. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and especially, we've been looking for 2022 to be a big year for the XRP ledger, and, I think this just adds to some of the stuff that Ripple can bring to the table. So moving on further, there was an interview that kind of corresponded with this. So it's titled Ripple CEO Won't Apologize for Taking on the SEC. And in this, let's move on. So one of the first questions was why buy back shares? So basically Garlinghouse said a lot has changed in crypto world in the last 2 years since they did the funding round. Overall asset values have grown from about 200 billion to 8x that today. Ripple's business has materially grown. So despite these crazy headwinds with the SEC and frankly losing some customers because of the lawsuit, we grew very quickly and we feel like we're starting 2022 in a great position of strength. And he adds in that they have, $1 billion of cash on the balance sheet and that the share repurchase was at a $15 billion valuation. So Mickey, I'll kind of give my opinions here. Certainly, if they bought back shares, it could be that they don't want to have like all the cash that they had sitting around, especially with like inflation and things of that nature. And I do still think they intend to IPO in the US. I don't think they're doing this to try and leave the US. There's a ton of money that can be made for Ripple. We saw what happened with Coinbase's valuation. Once it IPO'd, it ballooned tremendously. And I think Ripple's probably set up to have a much higher valuation than something like Coinbase has in the future, especially if they get through the SEC lawsuit in a way that leaves their business in the US, rather unscathed going forward. So I think it's probably having a lot to do with that in a future IPO. I don't know if that IPO would ever come in 2022. I imagine it'd have to be 2023 or later at this point. But that's kind of what I'm thinking. Mickey, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I just think it's very impressive that they've been able to build up a $1 billion cash war chest with these headwinds of the SEC lawsuit the whole year before. And Garlinghouse even says we lost some customers. This doesn't include really probably any business doing in the US. But what it also says is they've built up $700 million in the last 2 years. Because the last time Garlinghouse spoke about their balance sheet, I believe was in 2019 during the Series C round, he said they had 300 million in the bank. So they've been able to accumulate 700 million more dollars in cash. Now, that probably comes from additional customers. And I know Leonidas has found that they've had roughly 500 customers plus. On some documents of other partners say that about RippleNet. But I also think they're selling more than just cross-border payments here. And they say that we're going into the liquidity hub. They're going into wallets. They're going into tokenization. And now regarding the buyback here, Tetragon was the one who invested 200 million, I believe, of that 300 million in the Series C round in 2019. They tried to sue Ripple when the SEC brought the enforcement action lawsuit. They lost, and now, Ripple bought those back. So Tetragon's most likely, it seems that Tetragon would be out as a shareholder. So what does this mean for the future here? Does this mean they have to go right to an IPO? Typically, startups do IPOs for the need to raise capital. Ripple is not in necessarily a situation where they desperately need a capital influx like Coinbase was. Ripple has the cash in the bank. Now, I would think they would use an IPO in the future for some kind of merger or acquisition. And another thing possibly why they bought back these shares is this possible a new investor, this is speculation, could be coming in to invest that would be a partner of Ripple, but also maybe wants a stake in Ripple, the company, in equity, instead of, say, maybe XRP. This could be some kind of fiat on-ramp and off-ramp, but that's just speculation. Garlinghouse said mergers and acquisitions was something they were really into before the lawsuit dropped. Then the lawsuit dropped. Now, IPO-wise, I'm still hesitant that they're going to do a full traditional IPO with them all talking about tokenization, security tokens, and all that. It's possible we could see them venture into something like that. I don't want to speculate too much there, but I think we need to understand that they're in this position as probably one of the biggest IPOs in history once this lawsuit is over. And they have the ability, since they're in tokenization, right? They're talking all about this blockchain, side chains, that they might want to do something that pushes the envelope of Wall Street and capital markets to that tokenized world, because they would have that ability. So that's something we have to look out for in the future and keep in mind that it might not just be a traditional plain Jane ICO like Coinbase did. So this is just impressive that they're doing this much business. And this isn't from the sales of XRP. So there's a lot of misconception that Ripple has to sell XRP to stay in business. This right here debunks anybody who's ever said that they need to sell XRP to stay in business or keep the lights on. That is clearly not true in this situation right now. With $1 billion cash, you don't build up a war chest like that. That's selling software, different licensing, and other forms of revenue that they have in RippleNet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thinking back to, people like to focus on what is the value of the escrow that they kind of have in their hands. One thing is you can't necessarily value it at the market value, and you have to discount it because, I think the escrow is backlogged over 40 months at this point before they could sell all of it if they wanted to. And, if we look around to other blockchains, like a lot of them do have big war chests that they have for ecosystem funds, building out partners, issuing grants and things like that. Obviously Ripple could use it for ODL or for bootstrapping DeFi on like an EVM side chain and different things like that. So I think that's more of what the XRP is going to be used for going into the future. And the way that they're really going to make a lot of money, especially for their early investors, is an IPO in the US markets, which is like the best place to do that. So I really don't think in any way this is like signaling, hey, they might want to leave the US. I think they would have done that already a long time ago. They've already gone through this case for, a year plus. I think, they're here for the long haul. They've committed to staying in the US. And I think they're going to look to kind of reap the benefits of that through the public stock market in the future.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that this doesn't give any signs that they're necessarily leaving the U.S. I do agree with you, Patty, that the U.S. capital markets are the biggest capital markets in the world. And at their size right now, there's very few startups and fintechs that have that much cash in the bank. This is very abnormal. But one other thing Garlinghouse says in that tweet there, he says interoperability bridges. So one of the things that we just got news today is this Allbridge adds support for XRP Ledger. Now, Patty and I, this was the first we've heard of this Allbridge, right? So let's run through the document, the blog post here, and then we're going to throw a little surprise on how this is connected to PolySign.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, based on some of the metrics that they state here in this blog, I'm kind of surprised I haven't heard about it yet. So, we're not going to touch in how this works and everything like that. It's, this won't be coming till the end of Q2. We'll touch on it in the future, how exactly the bridge works, what the security features and all that stuff are later on. We're just going to kind of touch on what the deal with it is for now. So, right now, Allbridge is a cross-chain bridge with more than $500 billion in total value locked. It'll be integrating with the XRP ledger as its 12th blockchain. This can allow for seamless transfer of its native digital asset XRP across all the current integrated blockchains. So that'd be, a lot of the big hitters, especially the smart contract ones out there like Ethereum, Avalanche, Solana, Terra, Polygon, Phantom, Binance Smart Chain, Harmony, Hecko, and CeeLo and Aurora. So, what is really exciting about this in particular for me is that they can bring assets to the XRP ledger as well. And right here, they kind of state the integration will also bring assets like AVAX, Sol, Luna, and Matic, as well as USDT, USDC, and UST stablecoins directly to the XRP ledger, leveraging its built-in decentralized exchange. Additionally, they state over $4.8 billion in transactions have been processed using their cross-chain bridge. So moving on down here a little farther, and this is what I really like to see. So the XRP ledger was created in 2012 with the first DEX. Other capabilities inherent to the XRP ledger, such as auto bridging, allow for assets transferred to the XRPL to access the DEX's existing liquidity to create synthetic order books for assets. Pathfinding functionality also allows assets to find an efficient path for a trade. So, for example, say you're looking to trade from BTC into ETH on the XRPL DEX, and there's no ETH BTC liquidity, but there is ETH USD, BTC USD, ETH XRP, and BTC XRP pairings that all have enough liquidity. Pathfinding will execute the trade by finding the most efficient path within seconds via XRP or another bridge asset where liquidity is best. And they state since its inception, this is something I didn't know how much volume it's actually seen. More than $200 billion has been traded on the XRP Ledger's DEX, which I know that's over like 9 years, but that's a pretty huge number. So that's really interesting to know. And, Mickey, I think what's really interesting is a lot of the DEXs out there, are currently automated market makers where you deposit an asset in a pool and then you take out another asset. So with the XRP Ledger DEX, it allows you to tap in. You can do limit orders, market orders, use like a normal kind of order book like you would do on a centralized exchange. I think that could be really enticing for a lot of traders out there that are interested in assets on all these different chains that are going to be integrated. And then additionally, we see something like Polkadot on the Polkadot ecosystem doing something similar where they're creating an order book DEX as well that's going to be decentralized, that taps into like ERC20 tokens and the assets on Polkadot. Now, Mickey, I know you're pointing out to me that you find it really interesting, the specific blockchains that are integrated here and which ones are kind of missing. Mickey, you're muted there.
Yeah, so this points to the state connector system is connecting to Algo, Litecoin, Doge, Stellar, and the XRP Ledger. So those are not listed here, right? And these are 5 others that's going to give all access to the XRP Ledger to all those native blockchains through the state connector. Now this Allbridge is going to connect all these other networks that are not part of state connector system. So you can see how this interoperability web is just going to be massive very quickly. And then we know Flare is going to connect to Polkadot, eventually Cosmos. Those aren't listed here either. But all the other ones are listed. And I just find this interesting. And how have they put through $4 billion already? And they have 500 million total value locked. I've never heard of Allbridge. So we're going to dive in here a little to how is this connected to PolySign? So I did a little research and digging to see, well, who's invested in this Allbridge, right? So what do we know? Race Capital is invested in, the only investor in Allbridge. They happen to also be part recent funding round last year into PolySign, and they have multiple funding rounds into FTX. So that would make sense of how they're getting billions of dollars through this interoperability bridges, but we've never really heard of it. And this is in January 2022, this funding round took place for Allbridge from Race Capital.
Yeah, absolutely. It is an interesting connection. And I imagine it's very possible that Race Capital kind of, brought this partnership together, possibly. They are kind of the connector between, the PolySign Ripple side and then the Allbridge interoperability layer. So I think that's really cool. Honestly, this website.
Oh, it does say AnySwap Foundation on there at the bottom, though. So it does seem like they are incubated by them at the bottom. Go down a little more.
Oh, yeah.
AnySwap Foundation, right? Is that AnySwap? Oh, APY swap. All right, that's one I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, I assume that's just a DEX. That's what it kind of seems like with some of these other partners that they have there. But that is definitely an interesting crossover. Their website's really nice. Looks like the bridge fee's pretty low. Transfer time's not too bad. They have over 90 bridge directions, which I'm sure is only going to increase once they bring in the XRP ledger. And, the one asset we didn't bring up as well, Mickey, is Cardano isn't currently involved with Allbridge. However, there is a lot of overlap between Flare and Cardano investors, with the Cardano C Fund investing in Flare. And there's also been talks about Cardano becoming an F asset because they don't have, native EVM capabilities on Cardano. So yeah, it just really goes to show like how big I think this interoperability bridging is going to be in the future. There's going to be different kinds of bridges. What Flare's trying to do with the F asset system and state connector system is building like the first truly trustless bridge, which I think is going to be super powerful. And that will allow for a lot of the other, non-smart contract, capability blockchains to tap in and eventually have their assets be brought over to the XRP Ledger's DEX as well.
Yeah, and one other thing interesting here is this connection with PolySign. I know this is speculation, and this is one connection of dots, but we know Joel Katz on Twitter, who's David Schwartz, at the Apex Summit, he told us the first federated sidechain that RippleX is building is an EVM-based sidechain. So that EVM-based sidechain that is coming, we don't have any details on it yet, but we know it's in development. Just happens to be at the same time while the state connector system is being built, while Trustline and Probity is building the Solaris bridge to the XRP ledger from Songbird and from Flare. So you could start to see and envision what's coming in the next months ahead, the next couple quarters. We're going to see this web of interoperability happen fairly quickly when it does. And then you'll start to see all these distributed applications. So now we'll start to see applications that are on multiple different blockchains, and you could use multiple different assets. And what you were talking about before, let's go back to, is with the DEX. It has the order book at the center. So when David Schwartz says, I envision global pools of liquidity, public pools of liquidity that people could contribute to and draw off. That sounds a lot like automated market maker liquidity pools surrounding inside chains or on the mainnet, the XRP ledger DEX.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely see where you're kind of drawing that comparison. So, I mean, for me, this is, super exciting. Obviously, the DEX has gotten way more volume in the past year in 2021, as there's been a lot of development on the XRP ledger with new projects and things like that. And then we know as like the rest, of Flare, this Allbridge capability gets, built out, as well as like Wrapped XRP from Wrap.com, that firm. We can kind of really see, where this whole game plan is going.
Yeah, more utility for XRP to move on these other blockchains, and at the same time, it's also allows for the interoperability for these assets to move onto the XRP ledger. So it's not necessarily all atomic swaps, it's actually transferring the value from one blockchain to another blockchain. And now that these layer ones are starting to get established and we're getting real applications built on them, real DeFi, 200 billion in total value locked in DeFi now, and that's likely to go over possibly 1 trillion by the end of this year. I could see it happening. There's been some predictions there. XRP is right in the mix. So there's no too late for XRP or Flare getting into DeFi. DeFi is still very early, very immature, and very young, but it's going to get more mature quickly as this interoperability layers take form. And we got to see really where standard custody and PolySign fit in with that, because we know they're building a custodial blockchain layer, and they're also building a separate blockchain for settlements. So I'm going to see how that plays in to all these exchanges, right? All the exchanges, really all they are custodial wallets around the XRP ledger. Every exchange has an XRP wallet that's a custodial wallet that just sits around the ledger. And those are kind of like the gateways. Now with these side chains, that allows for horizontal scaling. So instead of just going right to layer 2 and building up, like Vitalik keeps saying, the XRP ledger is going to be able to expand horizontally. Just how Polkadot has parachains, the XRP ledger will have many side chains. Cardano is also doing that. And then you could work layer 2 up, and that just expands the size of what is capable. And you could have private side chains, you could have public ones, you could have decentralized ones, centralized, federated. There's all different types of designs there for any type of use case. And this gives XRP more utility. And I like how they say we're not just cross-border payments anymore. They used to say, hey, we're laser focused on cross-border payments. The narrative has changed in the last 6 to 12 months. So once this case does get resolved, I expect to see a massive push from Ripple, from the partners, from XRP, and all the projects that are building on the XRP ledger and on the side chains. Ripple has 3 rounds of grants going, funding $250 million into those as well. So exciting times ahead for sure. And this is great news seeing this Allbridge in complementary to the state connector system with Flare. And we know interoperability is a big, big component of the future here for any digital asset and blockchain.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I don't want to go I don't want to go understated is the fact that USDT, USDC, and UST stablecoin bridging is going to be available. Right now, the only stablecoins on the XRPL is basically IOUs issued by GateHub and Bitstamp that you have to redeem with those exchanges. So I think adding more stable coins to the mix will be really helpful, as well as the ones that are going to be created by Probity DAO as well. So, with these things, I think you want competition between many different things on the XRP ledger and on all these blockchains, because then you really get, the cream rises to the top. So, yeah, really exciting. I think this is a good point to wrap up, unless you got any final thoughts, Mickey.
No, this is just great news, and it's great to see Ripple in such a strong financial position throughout this, 12, 13, 14 months struggle in the SEC case. To see them so strong financially is very encouraging, and they have plenty of money to play for any lawyer fees and to continue to expand. So it just makes me more confident in investment in XRP, and seeing the network getting this interoperability, I think, is a great thing for anyone who's holding XRP right now and the future that's going to come. And Penny and I have talked about this. We envision a lot of development coming probably in the second half of 2022, like Q2 to Q4. There's going to be a lot of ramp up, and things are going to change rapidly. So as a community, we need to prepare for that transition. Flare is going to go live. Side chains are going to go live. New projects are going to spin out, and we're going to see XRP, hopefully with regulatory clarity, and then used on a bigger scale than it is right now. So everything we said is not financial advice. This is just for educational purposes only. I'm Mickey B. Fresh.
I'm Patty XRP.
And we're out.
See y'all.